Hey, it's Mary. Welcome back to my channel where I share tips and tricks that I've learned on my writing journey to help you on yours. This is part 2 to the video I put out last week on literary genres. I had to make a part 2 because the video would have been mega long and my little MacBook isn't strong enough to handle all that footage. In last week's video, I talked about fiction genres. So we're talking fantasy, romance, sci-fi, historical fiction, mystery, thriller. Those were the genres we talked about last week, and we summarized them. Talked about word count also, what the appropriate word count is for your novel. If that's what you're looking for, go watch that video first. But now we're going to talk about the more niche terminology when it comes to literary genres. Well, actually, I'm starting out with one that isn't niche at all. In fact, it's very well known. I just didn't want to fit into the last video. What determines whether a book is adult or young adult, middle grade, or children's literature? What sets these apart? If you're thinking what I'm thinking, your age. But a contributing factor is also the age of the main character. Are they in high school or middle school? What stage of life are they in? The age of the character usually determines the themes of the book. A young adult novel is going to have probably coming-of-age themes. Adult has themes that pertain to adulthood. New adult deals with the transition between those two states of being and deals with things like college and career. These are called age genres. So a book that is for kids the ages between reading age to 8 years old is called children's literature, and it's typically your typical picture book.
You can break down children's literature even further, separating them into picture books, early readers, and chapter books with the 0 to 5, 5 to 7, 6 to 9 ages, but just for the sake of the video, I decided to lump them all together in what is the overarching term, children's literature.
Examples of this would be Where the Wild Things Are, Corduroy, that was one of my favorites, The Giving Tree, The Very Hungry Caterpillar, Peter Rabbit or The Velveteen Rabbit, Eloise. Those are all children's literature books. They tend to have illustrations in them to help keep the child involved. Then you have middle grade. Middle grade is ages 8 to 12. Examples would be The Boxcar Children, Chronicles of Narnia, 39 Clues, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, A Wrinkle in Time. These books might have more illustrations than a young adult novel, which usually has very, very little. For instance, Diary of a Wimpy Kid is predominantly illustrations, but it's still written for a middle grade audience because it deals with themes for that middle grade. Chronicles of Narnia has some illustrations thrown in, and yet it expects a little bit more from the reader. Young adult, or YA, as it is colloquially known, is for ages 12 to 18. This is your teenage years, and tween. 12 is tween. That would be Percy Jackson, The Hunger Games, Maze Runner, Divergent, Shadow and Bone, The Cruel Prince. These are all young adult books. And even though a lot of them have high stake events like wars and bringing down governments, it also deals with a lot of coming of age stories and themes that teens might go through, like friends and relationships and romance and that kind of stuff. You have adult, which is exactly what it sounds like. Anybody 18 or older. Outlander, To Kill a Mockingbird, 1984, Dune, Crescent City. And then the last genre I'm going to mention, I don't think is officially recognized as a genre, and it technically falls under the umbrella of adult, but I like this category, and I think it's important, and I think it should be recognized more, and that is new adult. So new adult is specifically for people the ages 18 through, let's say, 25, and it deals, like I already mentioned, with themes relating to that stage in your life. That is a very important and formative stage in your life. It's going to be very different than when you're 30 or you're 40 years old, but it's also different than when you're 16 and in high school because you're a different person. Is it technically adult? Yes, but I would say it's like a subgenre of adult. If We Were Villains, Vicious, Divine Rivals, Normal People. I don't have a lot of examples because, like I said, it's not a super recognized genre, but also because most of it is romance and I don't read romance that often. But yeah, new adult focuses on the transition from adolescence to adulthood, the inevitable transition, might I add. Content of the book also plays a role in deciding whether a book is going to be adult or young adult. Graphic depictions of violence, language, sex. Although I have read young adult books that do have very detailed spice scenes and gruesome violence, and others that teeter very close to that edge. Usually those books would be marketed as adult. Like Mistborn, the main character is 16 in that first book, but they're adult books. And as the series progresses, the series finishes when she is in her early 20s. So by then they are tried and true adult books. And then you have some adult books like Heather Fawcett's and Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which is one of my favorites, where the main characters are adults. They are professors at the University of Cambridge in their 20s somewhere, probably mid-20s. There is a romance. There is no graphic depictions of sex. It's all very vague and elicited too. The violence is not graphic. The language is not graphic. It's very lighthearted and tame, but it's still an adult book because the themes that it deals with pertain to adulthood, not adolescence. So those are the age genres. Those are for marketing. Those are for publishers to deal with. I don't worry about that. That's not my business. There are other terms that I'm just going to breeze through because they're kind of random. For instance, there are categories that describe how realistic your story is, like mimetic, which means to mimic the real world.
So as I was describing what mimetic writing was, I realized I wasn't making sense. Mary Cole, who is a literary agent, has a blog called Kidlit, or a website, I suppose. It's less of a blog and more of a resource tool for writers. And on it, she describes mimetic writing as, and I quote, a literary device that simply means having your writing match the pace of what you're describing with how you're describing it. So if you're writing, and she uses this example, a fight scene, an action scene, you're not going to have the character stop mid-fight scene and take in every little detail about their appearance and reflect on it, because that's just not realistic. If something is supposed to be happening fast-paced, you're going to have the story and the pacing convey that it's fast-paced, right? And obviously, there are liberties we take with writing as far as internal monologue and external situations and maybe jumping from scene to scene, and so that doesn't always play out perfectly and naturally. I guess it is kind of a bit of a vague, all-encompassing term that can be applied to different realistic elements that you put into your story. But
then you also have speculative fiction, which is your fantasy, sci-fi, the books that sit outside the realm of what we know. Mimetic just means to mimic. So if it's mimicking something we already know, it would be mimetic. And speculative is you're speculating on how things would work because it's fake. We don't actually know how it would work. We're making it up as we go. You have terms like commercial fiction, which means that the plot of the book is straightforward and focused, linear storytelling written for mass appeal. The majority of books that go big on BookTok are commercial. I love commercial. There's nothing wrong with commercial fiction. But then you also have books that are literary fiction. Literary fiction focuses on theme and style and structure instead of being straightforward and linear and plot-focused, like a lot of young adult novels are.
There is another category that I forgot to mention, and I don't know why, because I vividly remember looking into this genre a year or two ago because I wanted to know more about it. Upmarket fiction. It's basically a blend of literary fiction and commercial fiction, often called hybrid fiction or book club fiction because it's a very safe book for a book club while still being a bit more highbrow than your typical commercial fiction book, with maybe some themes and elements that you can dissect a little bit more than you could commercial fiction sometimes. It's basically a blend of high quality writing and character development that can reach a lot of people while still having a lot of deeper meanings and maybe a bit different structure than your typical commercial fiction book.
All of these terms are useful for, like I said, publishers and marketing, not necessarily for you while writing your story. You don't have to worry about that. It's not going to affect your story. It doesn't have to be one way or the other. Mimetic is not better than speculative. Literary is not better than commercial. It's just whatever you want it to be. So don't worry about those terms. They're just, like, if you're going to be published, it's probably good to know those, and even if you don't need to know them, fun to know. You are lengthening your brain, strengthening your brain. Okay, so now the final genre I'm going to touch on are the style type genres given in the book Save the Cat Writes, a novel by Jessica Brody. These are not genres like I've already mentioned, which are very traditional genres, hinge on setting and world or time period. Story type genres focus on story type, themes of the story. Traditional genres help set the reader's expectations for a story, such as romance readers knowing that they're going to get a relationship story. But the thing is that with those traditional genres, there is a lot of leeway on how they are implemented into your story. You know what the setting is, you know what the time period is, and the story can play off of those, but what are the themes of your story going to be about? It might actually be important to delve into and study these genres more than traditional genres, because they play into the life lesson that your protagonist experiences throughout the story, plays into the heart of your story and the impact it's going to have on your reader. And it can help you find elements to implement in your story to make it cohesive and rounded. And if we're going to be super shallow about it, because a lot of books are marketed for their tropes nowadays, and within these genres can directly correlate to certain tropes. I'm just going to read them word for word from the book. So, the first genre I'm going to mention is called a whodunit. Mystery must be solved by a hero who may or may not be a detective, during which something shocking is revealed about the dark side of human nature. The key elements of this genre are mystery and suspense. Rite of passage. A hero must endure the pain and torment brought about life's common challenges, such as death, separation, loss, divorce, addiction, coming of age, and so on. The key elements of this genre are growth and change. Then we have institutionalized, which a hero enters or is already entrenched inside a certain group, institution, establishment, or family, and must make a choice to join, escape, or destroy it. The key elements of this genre are confinement and isolation. The superhero genre can be characterized by an extraordinary hero finding themselves in an ordinary world and must come to terms with being special or destined for greatness. The key elements of this genre are justice and altruism. Dude with a problem. An innocent, ordinary hero suddenly finds themselves in the midst of extraordinary circumstances and must rise to the challenge. The key elements of this story are determination and perseverance. In the Fool Triumphant genre, an underestimated underdog hero is pitted against some kind of establishment and proves a hidden worth to society. The key elements of this genre are growth and transformation. In the buddy love genre, a hero is transformed by meeting someone else, including, but not limited to, love stories, friendship stories, and pet stories. The key elements to this genre are friendship and teamwork. Out of the bottle, an ordinary hero is temporarily touched by magic, usually involving a wish fulfilled or a curse bestowed, and the hero learns an important lesson about appreciating and making the most of reality. The key elements of this genre are comedy and irony. In the genre The Golden Fleece, a hero or group goes on a road trip of some type, even if there's no actual road, in search of one thing and winds up discovering something else, themselves. The key elements of the story are adventure and discovery. And then finally, our 10th genre of story types is called Monster in the House. A hero or group of heroes must overcome some kind of monster, supernatural or not, in some kind of enclosed setting or limited circumstances, and someone is usually responsible for bringing the monster into being, and the key elements of this story type are suspense and danger. Almost every story published in the last, 100 years has one of these themes in it. Actually, I would say like thousands of years worth of literature can be boiled down to these 10 story types. So the likelihood that your story is going to fall into one of them as well is very high, and it's okay if that happens. So if you're trying to be original while writing your story, you're not going to be. Original doesn't exist anymore. If we were in the first 10 years of the world existing, you could have been, but not right now. And that's okay, because we're not trying to be original. We're just trying to execute our stories in a good way. And you can take any of these stories, play on them in a fresh way, maybe subvert expectations. Instead of trying to run from trying to be like every other book in the world, figure out why those books worked, why they were liked, and mimic them. And that, my friends, is all I have for you today. I have finished my 2-part series of literary genres. This video is shorter than the first one because I did have a little bit less to talk about, and to be quite honest, I probably missed a lot that I could have talked about. There's probably more terms out there that I don't even know about, but that's okay. This isn't supposed to be all-encompassing. I wanted it to be as encompassing as I could make it, but it was more so a crash course for writers to know what story their book is and what it should be. I didn't even touch on comp titles in publishing, why it's important to know your genre and to read your genre in order to find comp titles and to improve your writing and your story. But if you have watched this video and part 1, then you have officially heard everything you need to know on literary genres that I could offer. We've covered age genre, fiction genre, publishing genre, story type genre. It's okay. Save your gratitude for the like button. You can come back and reference this video whenever you need to. And the other one, might I add. So go watch part 1 if you haven't. Seriously. Anyway, like I said, that is all I have for you today. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you spending your time with me. Subscribe. Comment down below what your favorite story type genre is. I like Golden Fleece and Rites of Passage. Those are some of my favorite story types. And that's it. Stay creative. Bye.